We dig into sources and research to bring you the most vital, well, the most fascinating insights. Today, we're tackling a figure everyone knows, or thinks they know, Joan of Arc. That image, right? The peasant girl, the warrior changing history. But our mission today goes beyond just retelling the familiar story. We want to peel back those layers, her origins, her incredible rise, her huge role in the 100 Years' War, that intense trial. And we'll also look closely at a really famous painting of her imprisonment. It captures something powerful, but there's a key historical glitch in it that actually tells us a lot about how memory and art work together.
Absolutely. And what's really amazing is how much we can piece together. We've got trial transcripts, direct words, supposedly, chronicles from the time, later art. So these sources, they let us explore not just her life, but the competing stories, the legend that grew around her, and why she still has such power. So let's get into it.
Okay, so let's set the scene. France, early 15th century, 100 Years' War, dragging on. It sounds like things were pretty bleak.
Bleak is an understatement. Desperate, really. You had King Charles VII, who wasn't even properly king in many people's eyes. The Treaty of Troy in 1420 had essentially disinherited him.
Disinherited? How does that even work with a king?
Well, his own mother, Isabeau of Bavaria, signed this treaty, basically handing the French crown over to Henry V of England upon Charles VI's death. It was, well, a massive betrayal from his perspective. Charles was mocked as the king of Boers because his actual control was limited to just a small area south of the Loire River.
Wow.
And on top of that, France was tearing itself apart. A civil war raging between the Armagnacs, who supported Charles, and the Burgundians, who were actually allied with the English. It was chaos.
Total mess. And into this world, Joan is born. Around 1412, Domremy. Just a peasant girl.
That's the story. Learned practical skills like spinning, sewing, very devout apparently, confessed often, took communion regularly, nothing at all suggesting she'd end up leading armies.
It's the unlikeliness that grabs you, isn't it?
Completely. Then around age 12 or 13, maybe 1425, she says she has her first vision, St. Michael. In her garden, surrounded by angels, she apparently wept, wanted them to take her with them.
Just like that, a vision.
So she claimed. And it wasn't just one. Later, she reported frequent visions of St. Catherine and St. Margaret. Importantly, these were virgin saints known for their struggles against powerful men for holding on to their virtue. Joan vowed virginity to them, to these voices.
And she believed these voices were ordering her specifically to help the French king.
Utterly convinced. She said they were from God, and the mission was clear. Go to the Dauphin, help him reclaim his kingdom. This conviction led her to do some pretty radical things.
Like the change in appearance.
Exactly. Before heading to Chinon to meet Charles, she cut her hair short, like a man's a bowl cut, and started wearing male clothing. A short black robe initially. And she kept this look, except for Easter, until her death.
Which must have caused a stir. I mean, even depictions from the time sometimes show her in dresses,
right.
But they couldn't quite process it.
It's fascinating, yeah. Many illuminations show her anachronistically, in long hair and female dress. The male clothing was a huge statement, defying gender norms, maybe even church rules. Practical for riding and fighting, too, of course.
So she gets to Chinon. Charles VII must have been thinking, who is this?
Understandably skeptical, yes. He had her examined thoroughly. First, by theologians in Poitiers. They basically said she seemed devout, good, Catholic, but they wouldn't or couldn't confirm her inspiration was definitely divine.
But they didn't shut her down?
No, they suggested sending her to Orléans could be, well, a practical test. If she succeeded, maybe it was God's work. But before that, another examination.
Ah, the virginity test.
Yeah.
Led by Yolande of Aragon, Charles's mother-in-law. Why was that so important?
It was absolutely critical, not just about piety. There were prophecies circulating about a virgin maid from the borders of Lorraine saving France. Verifying her virginity helped position her as potentially fulfilling that prophecy. It gave her credibility, made her seem like a divine instrument, not just some eccentric girl. It was smart politics, really.
A political tool, almost.
In a way, yes. And then she gave Charles this sign, something private between them that finally convinced him she was divinely sent. She never revealed what it was, not even at her trial.
So it wasn't just about soldiers and swords then. Her arrival changed the whole feeling of the war.
Absolutely. Her conviction, her belief that God was on France's side, it transformed the conflict. It became, in the eyes of the Armagnac soldiers, a religious war. Morale, which had been rock bottom, suddenly soared. That psychological shift. It was huge after nearly a century of getting beaten.
And it worked. 1429 that year was just incredible for the French cause.
A real turning point. Her presence at Orléans, The siege had been dragging on for months. She arrives full of confidence, and boom, the siege is lifted on May 8th. A massive victory, both militarily and psychologically.
Breathed new life into everything.
Totally. And it didn't stop there. The Battle of Patay, June 18th, another decisive French victory. Joan was there. It scattered English forces. And her influence wasn't just battle. She persuaded the Dauphin Charles to make that risky journey to Reims.
Right, through territory controlled by the Burgundians, his enemies.
A huge gamble, but it paid off. Charles VII was crowned King of France in Reims Cathedral on July 17, 1429. That coronation was massively important for legitimizing his claim to the throne.
The high point. But it didn't last, did it? After Reims, the tide started to turn against her.
Sadly, yes. The momentum seemed to falter. There was a failed attack on Paris in September 1429. Joan herself was wounded there, hit by a crossbow bolt in the thigh.
Ouch.
And then the capture. May 23, 1430, during the siege of Compiègne, she was pulled off her horse by Burgundian soldiers.
Captured by the Burgundians, allies of the English.
Exactly. She even tried to escape later, jumping from a tower at Beaurevoir. Seriously injured herself, but survived. She apparently said she'd rather die than fall into English hands. Which, tragically, is exactly what happened next. The Burgundians sold her to the English.
And that leads directly to the trial. Rouen, January 1431. Run by church officials, but very much pro-English, right? Bishop Cauchon leading it.
Very pro-English. The trial was political from the start, aimed at discrediting both Joan and, by extension, Charles VII, whose coronation she had engineered. The main charges were heresy based on her claims of visions, wearing men's clothes, defying the church's authority.
How did she handle the interrogations? She was just, 19?
She was remarkably steadfast, often clever in her answers, according to the transcripts. When they tried to trap her into saying something heretical about her visions, she famously refused to take an oath to reveal everything about them, saying she wouldn't tell them even to save her head.
Let's see.
Incredibly. And that famous line, when asked if her saints hated the English, she replied, "They love what God loves and hate what God hates." Then added her belief the English would be punished. Not exactly trying to win favor.
No kidding.
Yeah.
But the pressure must have been immense. They eventually got her to sign something. An abjuration.
They did. On May 24th, 1431, they took her out to a public scaffold, threatened her with immediate burning if she didn't renounce her voices and male clothing. Under duress, she signed a document, possibly not even understanding fully what it said. She put on a dress, they shaved her head. It seemed like they'd broken her.
But it didn't stick.
No. Just 4 days later, May 28th, she recanted. She was found back in male clothes. Some accounts say she was tricked or forced into it. Others that she chose it defiantly. She told the judges her voices had come back, told her she'd done wrong to abjure.
And that was it for them.
That was the legal justification they needed. Relapse into heresy. Under church law at the time, that was a death sentence, no further appeal. She was condemned on May 29th and burned at the stake in the marketplace of Rouen the very next day, May 30th, 1431.
Such a brutal end to an incredible story. And speaking of depicting that intensity, let's talk about that painting. Paul Delaroche, 1824. Joan of Arc, sick, interrogated in her prison by the Cardinal of Winchester. It's a powerful image.
It really is. Delaroche captures this feeling of confrontation, of vulnerability. You have Joan, looking ill, chained on her bed, sort of turned away but still defiant in her posture. Then there's Cardinal Winchester, looming over her in these rich, intense purple robes. He dominates the scene visually. And off to the side, almost in shadow, is another figure, Bishop Cauchon perhaps, taking notes. It's pure historical drama, very much in the Romantic style popular then.
It feels like it captures the essence, the power struggle. But you mentioned a historical inaccuracy.
Yes, and it's a significant one for understanding how art interprets history. The key thing is, Cardinal Winchester, the powerful English prelate shown interrogating her, he was never actually present during her interrogations in prison.
Really? So Delaroche just put him in there?
Exactly. Winchester was a major antagonist in the larger story of the war, a symbol of English power and Joan's enemy. Including him makes the confrontation seem more direct, more symbolic of church and state power bearing down on her. It amps up the drama, creates a Byron-esque clash, even if it didn't literally happen that way in the cell.
So art creates emotional truth, even if it fudges the facts. Fascinating. And Joan's story didn't end at the stake, did it? Her reputation was eventually restored.
Absolutely. Years later, after the French had largely won the war, Charles VII, the king she helped crown, ordered an inquiry in 1450. And Joan's mother, Isabelle Romay, tirelessly petitioned for her daughter's name to be cleared.
Leading to the Rehabilitation trial.
Yes, from 1455 to 1456. It gathered testimony from people who knew her, reviewed the original trial documents, and ultimately nullified the 1431 condemnation, declaring her innocent and a martyr.
A crucial correction of the historical record. I love that quote you mentioned from one of her old companions, Abjuration, at that trial.
Oh, yes. He said, "The maid seemed to me to be imbued with the best morals. I would like to have a daughter as good. She spoke very well." It shows the personal impact she had.
And her image just kept growing, right?
It really did. She eventually became Saint Joan in 1920. She's probably one of the most studied figures from the Middle Ages. Her meaning keeps shifting: national hero, feminist icon, symbol of resistance.
Even Pope Pius II, writing not long after her death, seemed a bit baffled. Called her admirable, stupefying. Wasn't sure if it was divine work or human stratagem. That captures the ongoing debate, doesn't it?
It really does. We rely so heavily on those two sets of trial records, the condemnation and the rehabilitation, which are inherently biased in opposite directions. Separating the historical Joan from the layers of legend is, well, it's tough.
And no confirmed portrait from life exists.
None. That sketch by Clement de Fauconberg in 1429, he was a clerk in Paris, drew it in the margin of a register based on hearsay. It's symbolic, shows her with long hair and a dress, holding a banner and sword, not historically accurate for her appearance then. This lack of concrete detail has definitely fueled some alternative theories.
Yes, the more creative interpretations, like the idea she didn't actually die at the stake, the survivalist theory.
Right, the idea that someone else was burned in her place and she lived on, maybe marrying and having children, as Jeanne des Armes was. These theories popped up particularly in the 19th century.
Why then?
Often tied to specific agendas, sometimes anti-clerical, trying to undermine the church's narrative of her martyrdom, sometimes nationalistic or political. Then you have the bastardization theory.
That she wasn't a peasant at all, but secretly royalty, a daughter of Queen Isabeau and Louis of Orléans.
Exactly. Proponents point to her supposed skills, writing, warfare, courtly games, things a peasant girl wouldn't normally know. And that virginity test ordered by royalty is seen as further proof of high-level conspiracy.
That's, of course. Does that really hold water?
The big counter-argument is, if she was that important, part of a royal plot, why did Charles VII and the court effectively abandon her after she was captured? They made very little effort to ransom or save her. It doesn't really track with her being a secret, high-value royal relative.
It doesn't add up. And I guess there's even a theory combining both. Survived and was a royal bastard.
Yep, the survivo-bastardization theory covers all the bases if you're looking for an alternative narrative. These theories show how historical figures can become canvases for later speculation.
So here we are at the end of this deep dive. Joan of Arc peasant, visionary, warrior, martyr, saint. Her story is this incredible mix of documented history and powerful myth.
And that painting, the Delaroche, with its dramatic flair and its factual inaccuracy regarding Winchester, it perfectly highlights how we remember history. It's not just facts, it's about the story we tell, the meaning we find.
Which leads to a final thought for you, our listener. Considering Joan's enduring power, her story's evolution, and how figures like her become symbols, how much does strict historical accuracy matter compared to the hope and defiance she represents? What does Joan of Arc mean to you?